Welcome, everybody, to A Real Point of View. My name is Greg Morgan, and I am the Real Movie Guy. I am joined by Karen D., who is the movie maven, and Stephen C., who is the movie guy, and the guy who never picks a bad movie. Welcome to our show here at A Real Point of View. Tonight's episode is about mythology, Greek mythology more specifically, and we were basically looking at films that dealt with Greek mythology. It didn't matter what era it was in, whether it be a classic Hollywood film or a more recent film. We just wanted to find something that dealt with Greek mythology and give you an idea about the movies we saw and what we felt about them and how that actually fits into our theme. So without further ado, were you guys able to find some pretty decent films with regard to Greek mythology that you wanted to share with us today?
No.
Okay. How about you, Steve?
I'm flabbergasted by that answer. There's plenty of good movies out there.
There might be. I just didn't find them.
Oh. There's plenty of good movies out there to watch.
There are. And I ignored quite a few movies.
I mean, obviously. The old Clash of the Titans is really good. Hercules is good. Troy itself is a well-paced movie. And
Troy,
good.
The 2004 one?
Yeah.
We'll have to agree to disagree on that one.
You're more than welcome to take that stance. But, yeah, no, there's plenty of good movies out there. Even some remakes. If you're a fan of Disney, the Disney Hercules movie is a good movie. Doesn't follow the mythology very well, but still a good movie.
All right. Oh, hey, I picked a movie called Ulysses. In other circumstances and circles, it would be Odysseus. This is a movie, Ulysses, that came out in 1954, starring Kirk Douglas. This was a European-made film. You can tell as you watch the film the different dubbing and how the lips are doing like this, and they're saying things like we're talking, So but it's actually a decent film, and it also caught my interest when I was a child. So I've seen this movie probably about 5 or 6 times over time. And so I went to revisit it again. And it also stars Anthony Quinn, which is another actor that I've always liked to watch over time. And he's actually in one of his later films, Across 110th Street, with really cool music and a really cool theme, has Anthony Quinn in it in his later years. But Kirk Douglas and Anthony Quinn did a few films together. But this was one of their earlier films. And it was entertaining to watch again, and it was also quirky to watch. So that's the film that I chose. So who wants to get started in telling us about their film or not film? Karen.
Okay, fine.
What is that film or not film thing going on down there?
Fine, I'll weigh in. Well, okay. I do agree there are plenty of good movies about mythology out there. I was looking for something relatively recognizable, dealing with the story that was relatively recognizable, not too esoteric. And so from that standpoint, I didn't find a whole lot that really caught my attention. I started out, I thought, well, maybe if I focused on just like one huge event like the fall of Troy, because there's a lot of mythology around that, I would find some good movies. Alas, that didn't happen. I started out watching Troy the Odyssey. This is a 2017 film, a very tiny film made. The movie itself was an hour and 30 minutes. And I'm like, how are they even going to tell the story in an hour and 30 minutes? But it was just so bad I could only get through like 10 minutes of dialogue before I had to turn it off. They had, I don't know what, okay, they started out with like Australian accents, doing some of this dialogue, like, you're going to rue the fall of Troy. on the on the Barbie, and I'm like, oh my God, I cannot listen to this. And even though other, mythology movies are done with British accents, it's like, well, at least the Brits have these rounded tones, and they sort of stand in for the cultured, intelligent sorts of, eloquent wings, and that's sort of the stand-in for that. But the Aussie accents just, oh my God, they drove me crazy. So I had to turn that one off. Then I went to Troy, the latest major retelling of the story that was in 2004. This is the version starring Brad Pitt and Eric Bana. It was directed by Wolfgang Petersen. And I guess Steve was saying that he thought this was a well-paced story. I don't think so. For one thing, it was 2 hours and 43 minutes, and that's really long for a movie. So it's like, man, you better be either just so eloquent or so just poignant or just such an amazing storyteller. Otherwise, you have no business with a 2 hour and 43 minute movie. And to me, none of that happened. In the first place, not only was this movie overlong, but its approach to the telling of the fall of Troy, I thought was a little all over the place. It was a little hackneyed. To me, Troy represents what happens when you have more money than God to throw at a film. And it's proof positive that throwing money at a film does not in and of itself a good film make. You really need a deft storyteller, especially with the fall of Troy. And you need just really excellent screenwriting. You need those elements, and money, all the money in the world doesn't necessarily buy that. No money, having no money will certainly won't buy it, but having all the money in the world doesn't necessarily help either. So in this particular instance, I guess I disagree with Wolfgang Petersen's sort of overall approach, which was to basically excise the gods from the story. I mean, in the traditional telling of the fall of Troy and the events leading up to Troy, the gods, the Greek gods and the Roman gods were very much involved and had a very huge stake in what was going on. But in the fight, it was really like Sparta versus Greece or whatever. But anyway, they were extremely involved, and to the point where when you read Edith Hamilton's mythology, they were taking sides. They were fighting amongst themselves. Now, they weren't going to die because they were immortal, but they were pretty PO'd about, it was sort of like scorched earth. It was like, the Capulets and the Montagues, or, pick some other huge, Hatfields and McCoys. Right. It was like that. And to me, I think Wolfgang Petersen just sort of from what I read, Wolfgang Petersen excised them because he felt that the God angle was silly. Well, I don't think so. It's not any sillier than the whole situation to begin with. You have some woman who leaves her husband, so you're going to go to war against the whole nation. Really, that's not silly, but having the gods involved, that's silly. That makes no sense. I mean,
if we're going for time frame wise, that's actually a fairly accurate thing.
Well, I think he would have been better off leaving the gods in. It could have made a more interesting story. It would have been more complex, but the whole story is complex. If you're not willing to undertake the complexity, why do the movie? Do a different movie.
And if I could make a comment on Troy, one of the ironic things about it is, okay, so we talk about Achilles, and they mention gods here and there, but as you said, the involvement isn't there, but yet here's this godlike person who has to have this godlike thing happen in order for him to, be defeated or whatever, and yet that was okay.
Yeah. I agree. I totally disagree with that approach, particularly because there's this one scene early on in the movie where Achilles is laying waste to some area of Troy or whatever, anywhere. Anyway, there's this temple to the god Apollo, and Achilles, who has anger management issues, let's just face it, is, you know, like laying waste to all the and there's a statue in gold of the god Apollo, and he cuts off the head, you know, and somebody says, ooh, you better leave Apollo alone, because, you know, if you make him mad, if you desecrate Apollo, ooh, the wrath of the gods will come down upon you. And I'm like, okay, well, I got to see a god first before I get all worried about the god. But anyway, he's like, yeah, kind of Achilles is like, bite me. And he stalks off to do something else. And, you know, and then like a few minutes later, you have, I can't remember which side it was. I can't remember if it's the Troy people or the Greek people who sort of, I think it's the Greek people who come along to see what happened, and they see like all of these headless statues all over the place. They see Apollo and are like, wow, you know, God, I really hope we don't make Apollo mad or the other gods mad, because we could really be in trouble. Ooh. But who cares? Because no gods were harmed in the making of this movie, frankly. Then you've got like the whole legend of when really Achilles shows up, and in the original, or in one of the many retellings of the story, when Achilles is killed, that actually presages the war by quite some time. It's sort of like there's all this crap that happens, and then Achilles gets killed, and then later on, like years later, you get to this whole Trojan War issue. But in this telling of the story, it's sort of like supposedly you're catching the Trojan War in like the last 30 days or so, and basically the movie ends when Achilles dies. Well, that's not the story. So it's like, okay, well, I'm not really sure why you did that. I also thought the dialogue was slow, was a little stilted, I think, in my opinion. And it also drove me crazy in the beginning to hear, like, more than once, I think we will embark on a tale that is the greatest tale the world has ever seen, and it will be remembered for the millennia, for the ages to come. I must have heard that like 3 or 4 times. I'm like, wait a minute. When you're actually in a situation that's going to be remembered for the rest of, like, for eternity, you don't really know it at the time. You're not that self-aware. I will stand with giants. I am with the greatest warrior that the world will ever see, and his story will be retold and retold and retold. Really? You know that going in? Really, dude? Come on, give me a break. So didn't like that. And to me, the most interesting part of the movie was really the fight choreography. And the most interesting part was when Achilles and Hector had their mano a mano fight, again, towards the end of the movie. That was that actually woke me up. I'm like, wow, this is interesting, because it looked real. And as it turned out, no stunt doubles were used in that fight. Nice. Eric Bana and Brad Pitt did that fighting, and they actually had like a friendly bet going on between them as to who would get the most money given how many taps each one got of the other, and Eric Bana totally blew Brad Pitt out. But they really did a good job, I thought, on that in that particular fight. And as usual, the women just kind of stand around and wring their hands, except for Bresis, who did manage to, like, put up a fight against somebody who was trying to, assault her. She's the only one, but she doesn't have that many lines. And then there's Hector's wife, who, kind of wrings her hands. And then there's Helen, who just has a deer in the headlights look throughout the entire movie. Orlando Bloom played Paris, and from what I was reading in IMDb, he hated Paris because he thought Paris was a coward and just
everybody else,
a total weakling. But everybody else did too. But
actually was a coward.
But here again, as it turned, but as it turned out, he was actually an excellent archer too.
Yep.
And historically, the archers in the old wars, the archers were kind of regarded as not real soldiers,
Right.
because they stood on the sidelines,
Behind.
or they were behind the fortress, the parapets, or whatever.
There was no honor in there.
Right. They could
fight.
be
Right.
they could be hidden. So of course, yeah, it's like shooting fish in a barrel. Of course you're going to get something because you're the archer. But they were kind of regarded as being removed, and not in a good way, and somewhat similar to the way that fighter pilots is sort of, kind of regarded as like not really being involved in the war the way that the, boots on the ground soldiers are. So, yeah, but then Paris, he's the one who kills Achilles. No spoilers here, just read your basic Greek mythology. I felt like he was actually aiming for the heart, but he missed and got his tendons. So, I don't know. But anyway,
He knew the legend. That's why he did it.
So Paris was a cardboard character as far as I was concerned. There wasn't much going on. It was I don't know what the hell Helen saw in him, but I'm not sure what he saw. I'm not sure what Paris saw in Helen either. And Menelaus, Agamemnon, I don't know what they saw in each other. And Peter O'Toole just brought some gravitas to the role of King Priam, but again, it's sort of like, in my opinion, the director, Wolfgang Peterson, tried to wrap his arms around this huge story, and there was too much story to wrap around. And so what he chose to leave on the cutting room floor and what he chose to emphasize just left a sort of what could have been an amazing movie. It was just kind of, in my opinion, rather average, but with a lot of money. Average money, average movie. So,
alrighty. Hey, did you like the movie?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, because
curious.
it should have been so much better than it was. It's not that it's a horrible movie, but Troy is not a horrible movie. And there are parts of it, like that fight scene between Hector and
The fight scene
Achilles,
was really good.
that are well done. But given its pedigree, given who was in it, given who directed it, it should have been amazing, and it wasn't.
How
And
about you?
I fault the director for that.
How about you, Steve? What was your movie again?
I chose Hercules, the one from 2014 with The Rock.
So give us some idea about how well you thought, how well you liked the movie, and what about that compelled you, and what was interesting about how they actually projected Hercules' mythology.
Okay. What I actually really liked about the movie is, hey, they cut out the God stuff. But they didn't cut. My thing with Troy with cutting out the God stuff is the exact same thing that I have with Hercules about the God stuff. You have the basis of a faith, of a mythology. You have people that believe in it wholeheartedly and their life is devoted to it. And then you have the other people that don't see the benefit of it, the sheer power of that thought motivating you forward because they believe so heartedly in themselves that it is not somebody else giving me this ability, it is me living up to my ability. Hercules kind of works the same way. The stories that are told of his 12 labors in this movie are like old stories where people would not visibly see things that were happening, but it would be eschewed by shadows, by light, differing, by it being dusk or it being dawn, and things, tricks are being played on the mind and the eyes, where, like, for instance, the Hydra. When he defeats the Hydra, it's not 12 snake, or this snake with 12 heads coming out and all of them are attacking. When you cut one off, another one, two appear in its place. It's actually this roaming group of bandits that their helmets and headgear are snake-like, and it's meant to ward off people and scare them from getting too close to them. It's meant to scare them when they're stealing from them. So when he goes to attack them, there's more than he thought there was. So he kills 6 off, and all of a sudden there's 12. So it adds to the legend that way. And then each story changes as it's going. At one given point in time, there's a bunch of knights knight type cavalry that is riding up. And the way the sun is glaring, they almost seem like them and the horses are combined. So they look like centaurs when they roll up. So it's like you're getting these fantastical stories shown to you, in what we're seeing is the reality of it versus the visual representation of it, of what, you're telling the story. There were men, it was half man, it was half horse, when it was just the light that blinded you. Maybe the guy in the back that ran away at the beginning of the fight's the one telling the story. Oh yeah, it was a crazy battle. And things like that. When the dog shows up, the Cerberus, this big monstrous, that protects the gates of hell from people getting out, and it's 3 dogs. But on the wall, the shadow, the flames flickering, when you see them, it's 3 heads moving independently on this one body with the growling and the barking. So it's just things like that. The character Hercules himself, portrayed by The Rock, I feel like he does a good job of being unsure of himself and still being Hercules. This is the time after the way the story goes that Hercules had woken up and had woken up in bed with his wife and his children murdered. And again, like she said, if you want to know how the story works, go read Greek mythology. But you get to see his unsureness of himself, but him having to live up to the moniker of Hercules to inspire other people around him to go to battle to save their kingdom. The story doesn't exactly go the way you think it's going to go. It does take a kind of turn about 3/4 of the way through, and I feel like it's a good turn. Everybody you thought, was on the up and up may not be. The people that you were skeptical about kind of, reverse the scales. So and getting the backstory for a bunch of the different characters is actually really good too. Ian McShane is in it. I love Ian McShane as an actor. He kind of plays a narrator and a partner in Hercules' group. So you get to hear him do a lot of voice stuff, and he's the guy that believes fully in the gods. He has foreseen his own death. So it is interesting the way, the back and forth of that. How do you think this battle is going to go? Well, I'm not going to die yet. That's really helpful. Thank you. So I really enjoy the movie. It's got a lot of good action scenes. The camera work for it does a really good job of like shifting the scene or catching it at a good angle to see really everything that's going on around the action that's taking place, not just focusing in on the action. So I think it's a good movie. It's definitely worth a watch. The acting is good, and it's maybe not a top 5 Greek mythology movie, but it's definitely up there and one people should see.
Sounds good. Sounds interesting. I've seen only parts of that film, and meant to go back to see more. I'm a fan of The Rock, so I've seen him in so many different styles of film that I've become a fan. And it's like he's trying everything to see how well and how good an actor he is or is becoming. So, yeah, I look forward to actually seeing that, especially after what you said, Steve. So my movie was Ulysses. Again, this was a movie with Kirk Douglas back in 1954. And English was kind of dubbed into this film. It was an Italian-made film. And what I liked about this film, started off as a child. I liked the action of it, what I could understand about it. Got into Greek mythology because of films like this. And even though another film helped me be that much more attuned to Greek mythology, it was not a very good movie. But back when I was a little kid, it was decent. That was Jason and the Argonauts. And so, becoming a Kirk Douglas fan, not just because of Ulysses, but also because of Spartacus.
Spartacus!
So going back to Ulysses and his plight, and his in this film pretty much starts with the Trojan War and the Trojan horse going inside, and Ulysses and his men coming outside of the horse. And the curse that's put on Ulysses in the film, because he desecrates the statue of Poseidon. And so he has made Poseidon mad. So it's going to be hard for him to get home because he's got to go across the seas to do it.
Poseidon's god of the sea. That's kind of cutting off your nose to spite your face.
There you go, causing issues already and didn't even realize it. So it's kind of a funny to watch this film go through its different essence or different waves of the curse that has been put on him. But to jump very quickly, so here's the thing: Ulysses has been away at this war for seems like 1,000 gazillion years,
At least 20.
away from his beloved Penelope, the most beautiful woman in his country. And because he's a king type, Penelope is this really rich woman who doesn't have a husband. And so all these suitors come and nestle themselves for years, waiting for Penelope to pick somebody. And she's doing all these things. She has this wonderful tapestry that she keeps weaving and unweaving just to keep these guys at bay. She says, when I finish the tapestry, then I'll make a decision. They're like, okay, we know you're not finishing it on purpose. So it's like, okay, look, lady, you're going to have to start making the decision. There's like 50 of us now. You got to make a decision on somebody.
Oh, wow.
And then enter Anthony Quinn. All of a sudden, you've got all these suitors, but when Anthony Quinn comes, he's not just the suitor, he's like the suitor with the mostest. He's like stud, he's strong, he's virile. And so technically he's telling her, hey, I'm the guy, it's me. I'm gonna be the one. I'm stronger than every single one of these guys that are here. You have to understand, I'm the dude. And she's like, no, go down there and tapestry. He's like, look, I know about the tapestry. You're not pulling the wool or the tapestry over my eyes. So make a decision. You got like a couple of days. I'll give you that. So all this time, Ulysses is trying to get back to Penelope. He ends up washed on the shore after his boat is destroyed and his men are killed. And he doesn't know who he is. He has amnesia. So he's like, hey. So he still exudes the Ulysses of old, the strength, the brawn, the cunningness, and all this, except he doesn't know who he is. So he kind of falls in love with this other princess of this island, and she's kind of in love with him. And, you know, he gets to the sea, and he's starting to realize, there's something about the sea. I'm a sailor, yeah? My boat got capsized, but why?
Meanwhile, Anthony Quinn's going, you know he forgot about you, right?
and he's doing that. And Ulysses is like, I think I hit a cyclops in the eye with something. It's all coming back to me. And so he realizes he needs to get back like pretty quickly to his what he loves. And it's his love that gets him back. And it's her love and her patience that she would not, when everyone's telling around he's dead, he's dead, he's dead, he's dead. He's heard this for years now, and it's become like a bad, you know. And so finally, the irony is here, as I watched the film, Ulysses comes back, but he comes back dressed as a beggar. And so there's a new test. She says, you know what? Her son comes up with this brilliant idea. If they could stretch the bow and then connect the bow.
If they can string the bow.
Thank you, string, and then shoot through these sets of axes and through the holes of these axes, then they can have her hand. So everybody's trying to do it, and nobody's even half close except.
There's the reasoning for this is because there is an actual trick to stringing the bow. It's not just why can nobody string a bow. It's because there's an actual trick to stringing the bow.
As Steve says, and so there's an irony here. Okay, so Ulysses has a son who is kind of a husky guy, tough guy. You would think a tough guy. In this movie, not so much. And so he doesn't get tough and cool until Dad gets there.
Oh.
So it's like they're saying, well, he's just a little boy. Get out of here, punk. They're punking him and stuff like that. And he's like, yeah, he's nothing. And he's nothing. He has good ideas, but he's nothing. He's just like a mama's boy. And so, long story short, and I guess this is kind of a spoiler, Ulysses comes, he's a beggar. Everybody's trying to string this bow, and they're all tough, and they're like, and he says, well, may I try? And they're like, you're a little beggar, you're not getting anything. He goes, then you have nothing to lose, right, if I try. And within seconds, he strings the bow, takes the arrow, shoots it, matches and wins, and then takes off his cloak, and someone screams, oh my God, it's Ulysses. And all of a sudden, Ulysses' son is this marksman. Boom, he's just shooting arrows, killing people. I'm like, why didn't you do that before?
Except for the fact that Ulysses killed everyone in the room.
I'm just saying in the movie. We're not talking about the movie. We're not just talking about the mythology. We're talking about this movie. In this movie, he's shooting everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Ulysses is shooting everybody. But if you look on the corner of the room, so is his son.
Just shooting all of the people.
And so his son is shooting an arrow, and then in two different parts of the scene, he's shooting arrows, he's hitting people. And this guy tries to sneak up behind his son, and then Ulysses jumps up there and stabs that guy while his son is still shooting and killing people. So my thought is, why didn't you just do that in the first place? You didn't got rid of at least half of these people. Just saying.
That's fine. Duh, I was mute. My thought is, where's the dog?
Oh, nobody cares about the dog.
Okay, no, the dog is major because Ulysses is dressed as a beggar. Everybody thinks Ulysses is dead. It's only his dog who recognizes him, right, and then drops dead. That's so sweet.
The dog was old. He's been gone forever.
Right. Of course he'd care about the dog. That dog was awesome.
Let's all be honest. That dog is like 24 years old, so
which is like 80
rope anyway.
85
and the dog refused to die until his master came home. I think that's really sweet.
That's 140, Greg.
And actually, here's the thing. I was just saying, I know it was like pretty old. My point is, it wasn't there, Karen. And I beg to differ. Here's my I beg to differ, Karen. It wasn't the sentimentality of the fact that his master's home, and he's like, I've been waiting so long. It was shock.
Yeah, it was like, holy crap.
He's like,
what the hell? Oh, Elizabeth, I'm coming to see you.
That's what it was. It wasn't love. It was like, this is dead. I'm so sad. The dog saw a ghost, and that was it. It was done.
Yeah, it was like, well, I guess the Reaper has come to take me now.
I mean, you don't go to the old dog like that and just pop up somewhere. Especially he had already resigned himself that you weren't coming back, and now you did that, and you just said, "Oh, poof." That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, this dog has literally lived like 110 years of his life, and you weren't there. So yeah, no, he's pretty sure you're dead.
So ultimately, it was a decent movie, but it's just funny because back then, when you're European films, you try to dub it, but you get American actors to be in your film back in the day, was making that film even that much more because this was a famous actor. Well, ladies and gentlemen, our time is pretty much up. Is there any other things about these Greek mythology movies that you guys want to mention? As far as I'm concerned, Ulysses with Kirk Douglas, it's worth a watch.
Greek gods rule.
What?
Hercules has The Rock in it. Go watch it.
Put the gods in the movie.
No.
Yes.
No, because then you get Clash of the Titans.
I'm a tweener.
Yeah, then you get Clash of the Titans.
Sometimes it didn't really make any sense.
You don't have
you get Liam Neeson just being a dick.
Well, if you do it badly, yes, but you can do it well.
Zeus is a dick.
Well, okay, I don't mind seeing that in a movie. I'm okay with that.
Cut it.
Well, one of the
I like realism in my movies.
I like a guy in the movie who should be beating the crap out of these people. He's not. He's sitting behind waiting for his dad to come home.